What is up, Gato Squad? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Elias. If you are new here and you like car stuff like I do, hit that button below to subscribe. Well, today we're going to be talking about the 5 negatives of the Civic Type R as a road trip car. Now, by now, no doubt you've already seen the road trip to Boston videos. I did 2 of them, part 1 and part 2. If you haven't, go watch them. I shared some thoughts of the car, but I wanted to go in detail and tell you guys exactly what kind of sucks about using the Type R as a road trip car. Let's get started. Here we go, guys. So we are on the highway currently. It's not quite a 1,000-mile journey there and back. It's 200 miles today. So we're driving the Type R today, and what more perfect day to talk about the 5 negatives of driving this car as a long distance road trip car. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is the worst one, is of course the Android Auto. That's the worst thing about this car as kind of a long-term cruiser. Now, when you're in a car, you're driving somewhere, you got 4 hours to go, 5 hours to go, the last thing you want to worry about is your radio going out. I don't know about you guys, but I like to listen to music, or I like to put on a podcast, and I like to have the maps on just in case, I want to see if there's traffic ahead, or there's some problems, I can get around it. If I want to look for gas stations, I could easily do it on my phone using the Android phone that I have. You could do it on the Apple phone as well. And I've been used to that using in the hatchback in the BMW that we have. They don't have integrated Android Auto, so I use everything on the phone, and that's not a big deal. But since this car has Android Auto and pretty much works perfectly for the first 10 minutes, hey, why not use it? The problem is, I noticed after about an hour of me using Android Auto, you start seeing glitches on the map. That's the first thing that starts happening with the Android Auto. You see glitches on the map, you see some things going wrong with it. It's not quite the way it's supposed to be. And then very soon after that, it'll actually shut off. The radio won't shut off. Android Auto will shut off. It'll bring you back to the main menu and it'll say device not connected. So I'm like, what the heck? So this happened to me a lot. Now, I did have many different cables. I actually have 5 different cables, USB-C cables with me, because I like to carry chargers, so when we get to the hotel, we can charge our phones. All our phones are USB-C. So we tried, luckily I had Jane as a passenger. We tried different cables, and the first thing is that this system is very finicky with the cables it uses. You have to have a very crisp, basically brand new, high quality, short cable in order to work properly. You know what? That's fine. That's okay. So that's what we got. We got a really high quality. Let me show you actually. Really high quality little cable here. Here it is. Nice and short. Extremely high quality. I've had no problems with this. It's really good. I got it from Amazon. It was like $10 by itself. So made sure it was high quality. I've never had an issue with that cable. Once I plugged that in, fine. We had it working again. But about another hour later, it would shut off. And what we'd have to do is we'd have to restart the whole system. Now, the whole restart of the system is pretty easy. You hold down the power button for like 10 seconds. It'll ask you if you want to restart it, and I did. I went ahead and restarted. But I have to do that every, between half hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And I think it's just the Android Auto getting overloaded. Because every time it basically crashes out of Android Auto, you would not be able to connect your phone. You have to reboot the system in order for your phone to be recognized again. Now, the second negative, it has more to do with the steering of the vehicle. Now, this actually is another thing that Honda can get right by just changing the software, because when I like to drive long distance, when I'm driving just getting groceries or whatever, I'm not trying to drive fast, I put it in comfort mode, which is great. This car has a great comfort mode. The throttle response gets a little softer. The suspension gets a lot softer, which is very wonderful. The car feels like a normal Civic, which is what you want when you're driving long distances or you're just trying to space out and drive somewhere. But the thing I don't like is, especially on the highway, the comfort setting of the steering is just way too light. You have to pay so much attention to the position of your hands on the steering wheel, because any false move, any tiny motion on the steering makes the car wobble around. Now what I found is that in the sport mode, the steering gets a little bit heavier. That actually helps in balancing everything out. So you can put your hands on the steering wheel, and because it's a little bit heavier to move the steering wheel, you don't have the little minor vibrations that you get when the car is in comfort mode. And some people may say that's not a big deal. And if you're only driving the car for an hour on the highway, yeah, it's not a big deal at all. You don't really care about it. You just kind of pay attention. But after, you wake up at 6 in the morning. I woke up at 6 in the morning after a late night. I didn't get much sleep. I was tired, trying to get to Boston for the Extreme Beer Fest. I was, not happy, basically. I was driving there. I was sleepy, and I was rushing to get there. And after about 2.5 hours, I got really annoyed. I've basically been having to pay attention intensely at the positioning of the steering wheel, the positioning of my hand. But the fix is put it in sport mode, and the steering gets a lot heavier, meaning you can put your hand on it, and unless you deliberately want to move the steering wheel, you won't have that issue. It's basically a dampened steering wheel, and that's exactly what you need for a long distance trip. You don't want to keep, having to measure out millimeter by millimeter each little motion. You're going to want to relax a little bit, and ironically, sport mode has the best steering response for the highway. Funny, right? Unfortunately, then the throttle gets too heavy for me, and the suspension gets a little too tight, so you have to pay more attention to the potholes, to the holes and things like that, and the undulations. You feel everything more, so it's a little bit less comfortable. So really, there is no highway mode in this car, and I think a little software support from Honda would be great. Now, reason number 3, and this may surprise you that I'm saying this, but it's road noise. Now, some people may say, well, hey, it's a Type R. What do you care? It's a little bit noisy inside. You're driving a Type R. It should be no big deal. And to me, really, honestly, it isn't. I like the way the car sounds. I like to be able to hear the road when I'm driving the car and enjoying the car, and at the track, and back roads, and driving locally to get it's great. But after 4.5 hours of being in the car, and you get the twitchy steering wheel, and the Android Auto's annoying you, and you're kind of sleepy, and you're annoyed of the other drivers, you're kind of made aware of this road noise that this car has. Now, compared to the previous cars I used to own, like the Prelude, for example, this car is actually a lot quieter than that car. And the Civic hatchback that I used to own might be the same or a little bit better than the Type R. But when it comes to road noise, I really never really paid attention. But after about 3.5-4 hours, I started getting annoyed. And you hear it you hear the wheels, you hear the tires, you hear the wind. The wind noise is probably the worst part of this car, and you hear it basically hitting all the seams of the car. You hear tiny little whistles, and you hear little crackles and pops from the dashboard. You get different little noises here and there that, if you're only driving for an hour, not a big deal. 4 hours of it, though, can get a little bit annoying. And yes, there's music you could drown it out with, and there's podcasts you can drown it out with. But like I said in the beginning, Android Auto was acting up, so all I had to listen to was road noise, and it can be a little bit annoying. Now, reason number 4 came as a surprise to me, because I never really had this problem before, and it's actually the elbow rests. Now you're probably telling yourself, man, this guy's complaining about some nonsense here. What are you talking about? You're driving a Type R, relax. That's supposed to be a luxury car. Get over it. Yes, I know, I agree. And, but this is why I don't drive this car long distances anymore, because I have more comfortable cars. And if you're looking at this car and you're going to be driving long distances a lot, these are some things that are going to annoy you. So the biggest thing that annoyed me on the way back in terms of interior comfort was these elbow pads. The elbow pads in this car are just not good. They're hard. They have the terrible material on them. If you have any kind of sweater that's kind of like a knit sweater, the knitting is going to get into your elbow. It's going to make you itchy. If you don't have a knit sweater, if you don't have a sweat, anything at all, if you're just wearing a t-shirt, your elbow is going to get tired resting on there. Even after about half an hour, you start feeling that little elbow rest digging into your elbows. And it's like, well, why didn't Honda put more padding in there? But it's one of the things that kind of got annoying after a while. I had to put my arms up, and it just wasn't comfortable after about 2 or 3 hours of driving. Something to keep in mind if you're going to be using this car as a long distance road trip car. And then the final one, again, probably a surprise to you, kind of a surprise to me, not really, is the seat. Yes, the seat is amazing. I'm actually very comfortable in it right now. It's a great seat, especially for track days. It'll hold you in. I've done, like I said, 3 track days in this car. If you guys missed it, go check them out. Extremely fun car. The seats perform beautifully, way better than any other seat I've ever used for the track or the mountain roads. But on a long distance road trip, you really should have some lumbar support, and this seat has none of it. So about 3 hours in, my back started hurting. There's not much I can do. Try to stick a pillow back there, didn't really work. So it's something to, again, keep in mind if you're gonna use this car on a long road trip. So fun. Well, one bonus negative, before I forget to mention it, and basically number 6, something that makes you uncomfortable when you're driving this car long distance, is the steering wheel. Actually, I'm talking about the steering wheel leather. Now, while I've loved the way the steering wheel leather feels when you're touching it, when you're driving along at short trips, in long distances it tends to kind of make your hands get clammy, they get kind of sweaty. And that's because of the way the steering wheel is. It's very smooth leather. So when you have your hand on it, it sticks to your hands pretty well. It doesn't let your hand breathe, and your hands get a little bit clammy. You don't get that same problem in the leather wrap steering wheel in the 3 Series, for example. It's a harder leather, it has more bumps on it, so you have more ways to let your hand breathe. In this car, it's a little different. So in the end, would I have chosen this car over any other car, for example, the 335D that I own as a road trip car? No, I would definitely choose the 335D over this car as a long road trip car. There's so many more benefits that car has over this. But with that said, the 335D was down and out, so I couldn't really do much about it. I had to take the Type R, and I don't regret taking the Type R. There are some positives to this car as a road trip car, but I will cover that in the next video. So for this time, thanks for watching. As always, if you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.